Hey everybody, it's Double M from the Touch 'Em Up podcast, and we're going to go back to a little list that I created for the biggest missed opportunities in the WWE. Now this can span back from prior to the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era, all the way up to modern day WWE. There were plenty of times where fans would scratch their heads and wonder why things were done the way that they were, why booking decisions and creative decisions were done in a certain way, and why things weren't taken in a different direction for certain individuals and certain storylines. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. These are a list not in any particular order, may I add, a list of the 10 biggest missed opportunities in terms of storylines or WWE championship reigns or just WWE careers in general. So let's get it started with the first entry on the list. I don't think anybody was expecting Kofi Kingston's world title reign after the title win against Bryan Danielson or Daniel Bryan in the WWE at WrestleMania 35 to end in the way that it did. It's not that Brock Lesnar wasn't a viable option to take the title off Kofi Kingston. It was the fact that he built up a pretty successful and strong title run, but got it crushed in under a minute on the SmackDown debut on Fox, and everybody scratched their heads as to why. They used this title to build up Kofi Kingston to a main eventer, and the sad part is that after losing the championship, he never really smelt the main event scene again up until this day. But the win at WrestleMania 35, the performance in the Elimination Chamber, and the performance in the Gauntlet match leading up to his title win at WrestleMania was absolute magic, and it was everything that fans wanted, but something that fans never expected that we were going to get. But Brock Lesnar ending the championship reign left a sour taste in the fans' mouth. Like I said, not because it was Lesnar who took the title off Kofi, but it's because they made his entire title run look like a joke, and made it look like he should have been defeated the first time he got his hands on the gold. That was the wrong decision, and I feel like Kofi, even if he was going to lose this match, should have had a good performance. The likes of Daniel Bryan, the likes of AJ Styles, the likes of Samoa Joe's matches against Brock Lesnar, and the fact how he was able to put over smaller talent even in crushing them in defeat. But Kofi Kingston was a different story, and a story that I wish had a different ending, because Kofi didn't deserve it, and he should have at least been able to put up a fight. The next entry on our list may come as a shock to some people, and it's the fact that we never got a one-on-one singles match, whether on TV or at a pay-per-view or with a world title attached to it, between The Rock and the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. Two of the biggest megastars of the WWE, two of the biggest stars in the history of the WWE. These are two men that are on the Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling and the Mount Rushmore of the WWE, but they never locked up inside a World Wrestling Entertainment or World Wrestling Federation ring throughout the entirety of their WWF or WWE careers. It's really quite shocking when you think about it. How did The Rock and Shawn Michaels never have one single match throughout the Attitude Era, throughout their debuts in '96, through the tail end of the Attitude Era in 99, 2000, 2001, and throughout the entirety of the Ruthless Aggression Era that ended in around 2007, there's no way that these two never locked up inside the ring. But it's true, and it's something that makes me sad to this day, because I feel like Shawn Michaels and The Rock, not only two of the best sellers, not only two of the best storytellers, but some of the best in-ring technicians throughout the entire history of the WWE, could have put on a match for the ages. Could have put on a match that would top the list of Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter. And could have made people in New Japan such as Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada look back on the past to study the masterpiece that this could have been. The Rock and Shawn Michaels should have at least had one main event caliber feud. But it didn't happen. But it's something I think all WWE fans wish we could have seen at least one time. The next entry on our list is one that I know a lot of fans are going to agree with, but it's the fact that they completely botched Kurt Angle's retirement match at WrestleMania 35. There was some good at WrestleMania 35, including Seth Rollins slaying the Beast and the Kofi Kingston title win that we already talked about. But Kurt Angle not only having his retirement match against Baron Corbin at WrestleMania, but losing his retirement match against Baron Corbin was the complete and utter wrong decision in terms of booking, storytelling, and just overall respect to Kurt Angle. Now, Baron Corbin was a mega heel, and he's one of the only true heels that we have in the WWE up until this point. However, Baron Corbin should never have been the choice. It should have gone to somebody the likes of Chad Gable. The fact that we never really got Chad Gable and Kurt Angle in a sort of Team Angle-esque revival, the fact that we never got Jason Jordan and Chad Gable and American Alpha joining forces with Kurt Angle as their manager in, like I said, a so-called Team Angle revival was really sad. But I feel like if they would have given Chad Gable the retirement match for Kurt Angle, and some people might say he wasn't big enough, he wasn't a big enough name, he wasn't a big enough star, but neither was Baron Corbin, so I think that argument goes out the window. But I think if you would have given the retirement match to Chad Gable, have Kurt Angle go out on a win, even have Kurt Angle tap out to the ankle lock from Chad Gable, it would have built Chad Gable up to, higher than the mid-card and going into the main event, would have given him the biggest win of his career, and it would have left fans with a form of happiness, I guess you could say, in terms of how Kurt Angle hung up his boots in terms of his pro wrestling career. They completely botched it, and it should have gone to somebody else. Baron Corbin was never the right choice. Just because he was a heel, it doesn't mean that that was the right decision. But I believe it should have gone to Chad Gable. So Kurt Angle's retirement, a complete and utter botch in terms of WWE's booking. The next entry on our list is going to be one that's somewhat controversial, I feel like. And it's the fact that I think Jey Uso should have been the man to dethrone the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Now, maybe I'm biased because I did make the video discussing how I believed the entire Bloodline story was centered around Jey Uso and not Roman Reigns as the Tribal Chief. That video did get me over 600,000 views and really helped to make this channel go to the next level, and I can't thank any of you fans enough for that. But in reality, I feel like this was a huge missed opportunity. Obviously, the storyline now with Tonga Loa and Tama Tonga and probably the face version of the Bloodline getting back together to face off against the new era's Bloodline, leader being Solo Sikoa, is probably where we're headed in the near future. Probably a War Games match between the original Bloodline and the new era Bloodline led by Solo Sikoa. But I feel like Jey Uso should have been the one to beat Roman Reigns for the title. Roman Reigns was just constantly abusing and manipulating Jey Uso until he eventually just couldn't take it anymore. And Jimmy Uso was trying to tell him over and over again, like, no, that's not what he's doing and everything like that, and eventually he just snapped. He was one of the only men to pin Roman Reigns clean, even though it was in a match that wasn't for the championship. However, I just feel like this was another missed opportunity where Jey Uso should have been the one to take the strap off of Roman Reigns, and it could have brought that Bloodline story to the next level, because I feel like if it was one of his own family members who took his title, Roman would have went into a tizzy and really just brought his heel work up to the next level. Some people may disagree, however, I feel like this was something that WWE should have done. I'm not mad that Cody Rhodes won the championship and defeated Roman Reigns, but I feel like it should have gone to one of Roman Reigns' family members in Jey Uso. Next on our list, we're going to talk about the embarrassment that was John Cena and his group of WWE veterans completely dismantling the new dominant group, quote unquote, in the WWE, full of NXT rookies and led by Wade Barrett in the Nexus. There's no reason why John Cena and his group should have defeated the Nexus at SummerSlam. The leader in Wade Barrett, along with the slew of rookies from the first couple seasons of NXT, including David Otunga, Justin Gabriel, Heath Slater, Michael Tarver, Skip Shetfield, aka Ryback, and many more, they should have defeated John Cena at SummerSlam, and they should have done so in a somewhat dominant fashion. It didn't have to be complete and utter dominance, but there's no reason why John Cena and his group defeated this group, handing them their loss in their first major pay-per-view. The group would get it back later on, where Wade Barrett defeated John Cena at Hell in a Cell 2010 and forced him to join the Nexus. However, that lasted for about one episode of Monday Night Raw until John Cena was back on trying to destroy the group that he already had destroyed at SummerSlam. John Cena would then be the special guest referee when Randy Orton defended his WWE Championship against Wade Barrett at Survivor Series. However, if John Cena costs Wade Barrett the championship match, he would be fired. And what do you know? John Cena counts the 3, Randy Orton retains the title, and John Cena's gone for, what was it? 1 episode of Monday Night Raw? I don't even believe it was 1 full episode, and he was back on television. The Nexus would be moved into a form of a new Nexus led by a new leader in CM Punk, and then Wade Barrett would lead his faction with Justin Gabriel, Heath Slater, and Ezekiel Jackson on SmackDown in the new faction known as the Core. But after SummerSlam, the Nexus storyline, aside from the CM Punk angle, was completely and utterly demolished with one wrong booking decision. Up next is pretty simple, and it's Bray Wyatt not being the one to end The Undertaker's streak at WrestleMania 31. I know what some people are going to say. Brock Lesnar was the only believable character and the only actual believable fighter who could beat a man known as the Phenom. But this isn't real life. This is the WWE Universe. And I don't think anybody was more perfect, aside from maybe CM Punk or Randy Orton in 2005, than the Eater of Worlds Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt was known as the new era's version of The Undertaker, and they had a pretty damn good match at WrestleMania 31 with Darkness versus Darkness. However, The Undertaker's streak had already been ended the year before at WrestleMania 30, the inaugural WrestleMania showcased on the debut of the WWE Network. Brock Lesnar winning was in some ways the right decision, but in many ways the wrong decision. It shocked fans. Nobody expected the 3 to be counted, with the Beast Incarnate being the one to conquer the streak. But a year later, having Bray Wyatt, who in storyline perspective was one of the best options you could have to conquer the Demon of Death Valley on the grandest stage of them all, just kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Because I think Wyatt was a much better option than Brock Lesnar. Even though Lesnar was more of a fighter, even though Lesnar was more dangerous in storyline and in real life, the character work and the, dynamic of similarity between The Undertaker and Bray Wyatt worked so well that I think having Wyatt be the one to end the streak, even though some people may say he wasn't ready, he would have been made ready by ending The Undertaker streak at Mania, and I just feel like they really messed up in terms of having Lesnar do it the year before, and not only because it was Lesnar who broke the streak, but because after Undertaker's streak was ended, most of the matches that Undertaker competed in the coming years following his loss lost that mystique and didn't matter nearly as much. And I think if Bray Wyatt would have been the one to end the streak, or the streak was still intact at WrestleMania 31, it would have brought that Wyatt and Undertaker feud to the next level. But this is the WWE, and sometimes the decisions just aren't the correct one. WWE's version of ECW had all the potential in the world, creating new stars like CM Punk, Johnny Nitro, who would be known as John Morrison, and many others down the line really brought new stars to the WWE in the years to come. But it didn't have that ECW feel. I did a video on my channel called The Fall Without the Rise of WWE ECW, and I'll put that link in the description so you can check that out. It's a much more in-depth discussion on the topic that made this list. But WWE ECW was doomed from the start. Like I said, it had good stars, but it didn't feel like ECW. It felt like WWE's version of ECW. With the Monsters Ball, with the New Breed versus the ECW Originals, with this stupid-ass zombie segment that they had on ECW, where there was literally a zombie who competed in a match. It just didn't feel like ECW at all, and it just felt like a cheap knockoff Dollar General version of the Philly-based Extreme Championship Wrestling that hardcore fans and hardcore wrestling fans came to know and love in the early 90s. But Vince McMahon's version, even having Vince McMahon win the ECW Championship and don the new look of Do-Rag Vince, yes, it was funny, yes, there were some good moments to look back and laugh on, but at the end of the day, WWE ECW was doomed from the minute that the show debuted on the Sci-Fi Network. CM Punk came out of it, which is a very good thing. And like I said, we got some laughs along the way, but for the most part, it was just a fall without a rise. Shelton Benjamin not winning a WWE Championship throughout his career, and I'm talking about a World Championship, really pisses me off. Shelton Benjamin was one of the most athletic and promising prospects in the WWE's Ruthless Aggression era. He started out and debuted in OVW as part of the Minnesota Stretching Crew alongside future multiple-time world champion and megastar in Brock Lesnar. When he came to the WWE, he was alongside Charlie Haas and Kurt Angle in the faction known as Team Angle. And that's where we got to see his athleticism that really catapulted him to what we believed was going to be the next level and a potential world champion. His WWE career would last as part of the WWE ECW brand and even a WWE ECW World Champion in 2010/2011. But then he would make his return when WWE decided to bring back the draft in 2016, splitting the rosters between Raw and SmackDown. He wasn't showcased as part of the inaugural draft picks, but he was supposed to debut on the WWE SmackDown brand in 2016. He would come back eventually on the blue brand, but the time wouldn't last too long, and eventually he would just be, catapulted into the Hurt Business, which was a decent faction at the time, and it still is a faction, but now it has Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins, and he just really never, amounted to anything, even teaming up with Chad Gable, which I thought was a very good idea, but it never really amounted to anything. He never got close to a world championship. He never even competed in a world championship match, and I believe he's no longer with the WWE, and it's sad to see, because Shelton Benjamin, had everything the WWE could have wanted in crafting a new WWE champion and a top-level main eventer, and was one of the best in-ring high flyers who wasn't classified as a high flyer throughout the Ruthless Aggression era. We've talked about this topic before, and it's actually pretty similar to the Shelton Benjamin topic we just discussed. Except the only difference is Dolph Ziggler actually won a world championship. He won it by cashing in the Money in the Bank contract that he won in 2013 alongside his, entourage in AJ Lee and Big E Langston coming up to the main roster from NXT in 2013 on Alberto Del Rio to win the World Heavyweight Championship. It's one of the best Money in the Bank cash-ins and one of the best showcases and displays of emotions following a world title win that we've seen in the modern era. Dolph Ziggler should have had a long, lengthy world championship run, but it never happened. He got injured and eventually lost the title right back to Alberto Del Rio a few short weeks later. And then in 2016, Dolph Ziggler would go on to have one of the best feuds and storylines of his career when he put his career on the line against The Miz for the Intercontinental Championship at Backlash in 2016 for the SmackDown brand. That was one of the best matches of Dolph Ziggler's career, and he would end up coming out on top, even losing a shoe in the process. He would win the Intercontinental Championship, but again, wouldn't have the title for very long and would never really have the chance to build himself up. Ziggler always seemed to get the opportunities eventually, but the WWE never had any faith in having a prolonged, successful title run, whether it was a mid-card or a world championship for Dolph Ziggler. Ziggler should have held the world title in 2013 for a lot longer, but obviously that was due to an injury why he had to give that up. He should have had a longer title run with the Intercontinental Championship, and he should have been able to win a world title at least once or twice more in his WWE career. Now he's over in New Japan and he's having some of the best matches and some of the best in-ring work that he's done in his entire career, and I'm happy for him. But he's not known as Dolph Ziggler over there. He's known as Nick Nemeth. But in the WWE, they really dropped the ball with the show-off. And for the final entry on our list, it's going to be the man known as Alistair Black. Now in All Elite Wrestling, running his own faction known as the House of Black alongside Buddy Matthews and Brody King, and known as Malachi Black. But I feel like the mishandling of Alistair Black's WWE career once he made his way up to the main roster is something that makes me sick to my stomach to this very day. Alistair Black or Malachi Black had the potential to be the new era's version of The Undertaker, just like Bray Wyatt, who's somebody we talked about earlier on the list. Black had a very successful career in NXT, even winning their world championship from Andrade Cien Almas in a short time since he made his debut on the roster. Black made his main roster debut alongside NXT counterparts such as Pete Dunne in the Royal Rumble match in 2019. He would debut on the Monday Night Raw brand, but shortly thereafter make his way over to Friday Night SmackDown. Some of Black's best work on the main roster was actually in singles matches in a feud against the man who is part of his House of Black faction in AEW in Buddy Matthews, but known as Buddy Murphy in the WWE. But aside from that, he had his run as the Dark Father, However, even though it seemed like that storyline had endless amounts of potential, it never was able to get off the ground aside from a brief attack on Big E Langston on an episode of SmackDown. And following that, we never saw Black on the main roster again, and that is what forced him to go over to All Elite Wrestling. It really pains me that I had to put Black on this list because he was one of the few wrestlers in the WWE who was able to blend a shoot-fighting style and a professional wrestling style together seamlessly. Some other mentions would be the likes of Kyle O'Reilly, CM Punk, and even Bryan Danielson, even though most of them have made their way over to All Elite Wrestling as we speak. And I wish I didn't have to put Black on this list as he's one of my favorite wrestlers in all of pro wrestling. But at the end of the day, I had to mention him because he's just another one of the asterisks next to some of the biggest missed opportunities in WWE history.